Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, where you will learn the difference between you and your mind and be able to act like a soul. Sometimes when the mind gets out of hand, you just got to yell at it. Stop it. Don't you remember what happened the last time you did that? You made me suffer and you suffered at the same time. Why are you trying to do this to me? And if you talk like that to your mind, then you get automatically, the sensation of the difference between you and your mind. And then when you're in that state, if you just pick up any one of Prabhupada's books, Prabhupada told us this. You're in anxiety, you think you got problems, just open up any one of my books at any page and just read, and you'll immediately get relief. And we're all seeing it every day, doing this every day, every day, every day. It's a sure way to get out of on the mental platform and onto the spiritual platform and get the association of a liberated soul. Sangeeta, Hare Krishna, Hare Bo. Okay, thank you so much.
I hope it works.
Now, is this a different brand?
Yeah.
Not sure. Are you going up the ladder, down the ladder?
I don't know.
Oh, I see. Oh, that's good.
High ratings.
That's good. Okay, good. All right. Now that I've gotten that off my chest, let's purify our minds by hearing from Srila Prabhupada and from Rishabhadev. But first, let's hear from Sanatana Goswami, what he has to say about the Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavat Mahima Stotram. It goes like this. Sarva Shastabdipi Yusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabhu Kalindwanduditaditya Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Padaya Prema Varshak Shadayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguru Man Mahadana Man Nistag Magbhagya Nat Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadhu tadayin adini chochata kada hanamunchagada chinmam premnarit kayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Om Namo Bhagavate
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Okay, us Houstonites aren't different to used to the rapid, strong change of weather we just had in the last couple of days. My voice is also going to growl. Okay, we've come to the 5th canto, 5th chapter, and we're hearing the teachings of Lord Rishabhadev. And we're going to start out on text 8 with a real heavy verse. This is explaining the material world in a nutshell. Pungsastriya mituni bhavametam tayor mito hridaya grantemahu ato griya chetra sutaptibitayar janasya moho yamaham mameti. The attraction between male and female is the basic principle of material existence. Well, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Who are you? Oh, Hare Krishna. Nice to see you again.
Yeah.
I almost didn't recognize you. Just see body changing body exhibits. Okay. The attraction between male and female is the basic principle of material existence. On the basis of this misconception, which ties together the hearts of the male and female, one becomes attracted to his body, home, property, children, relatives, and wealth. In this way, one increases life's illusions and thinks in terms of I and mine. And this isn't just human, this is all living entities. This is the basic principle of material existence. It's how it's first started, and it's how it's been going on since then. I told you the story of the bear whose cubs were going across the river. This is a real story. I read this story. It's real. There's a video of it. You can anyway. I don't want you to go on the internet. You'll be able to see the wrong things. But yeah, so this man was fishing, and he was on the bank, and he saw that these cubs, there were 4 cubs, and they got swept away by the river, the currents of the river, and the mother was just crying. So he jumped in the river, and he saved the cubs. And then the mama bear, it's no joke. A big mama bear came over to him, and he said, "Oh, but this may be it," And he came right over to him, and he put her arms around him, and gave him a hug. A bear hug. And he was in ecstasy. She was like really giving him some affection for having saved her cubs. Purport. Sex serves as the natural attraction between man and woman. And when they are married, their relationship becomes more involved. Due to the entangling relationship between man and woman, there is a sense of illusion whereby one thinks, this man is my husband, or this woman is my wife. This is called hridaya granti, the hard knot of the heart. I wonder if you can anybody hear me out there? Hello? 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 Maybe we'll get some rise out of somebody out there in cyberspace. This knot is very difficult to undo, even though a man and woman separate, either for the principles of varnashram or simply to get a divorce. In any case, the man always thinks of the woman, and the woman always thinks of the man. Thus a person becomes materially attached to family, property, and children, although all of these are, fill in the blank, temporary. There you go. Okay. The possessor unfortunately identifies with his property and wealth. Sometimes, even after renunciation, one becomes attached to a temple or to the few things that constitute the property of a sannyasi. It's true. It's true. But such attachment is not as strong as family attachment. Haribo! Put it all in a suitcase and move on. Or 2 suitcases in my case. The attachment to the family is the strongest illusion. But if we take human society as our family, it changes. Everything changes. You got one husband, one wife, kid, or 2 or 3 or however many. But if you take on the whole human society, that's sannyas. Take on the whole human society as your kids and try to help every single person you meet. When you're in anxiety, if your mind's disturbing you, just look for somebody to help and help them. And immediately you're out of Maya. The attachment to the family is the strongest illusion. In the Satya Samhita it is stated, Ramadya yagyavalkyadya muchante stri sahayinaha bodhyante kechanaite sham vishesham chavido viduhu. Sometimes it is found among exalted personalities like Lord Brahma that the wife and children are not a cause of bondage. On the contrary, the wife actually helps further spiritual life and liberation. Nonetheless, most people are bound by the knots of the marital relationship, and consequently they forget their relationship with Krishna. Text 9. When the strong knot in the heart of a person implicated in material life due to the results of past action is slackened, one turns away from his attachment to home, wife, and children. In this way, one gives up the basic principle of illusion, I and mine, and becomes liberated. Thus one goes to the transcendental world. He must have gone to India or something.
Oh, yes,
I thought so. He looked like he just came back from India. Hare Krishna. Purport. When by associating with sadhus and engaging in devotional service, one is gradually freed from the material conception due to knowledge, practice, and detachment, the knot of attachment to the heart is slackened. Thus one can get freed from conditioned life and become eligible to return home, back to Godhead. Text 10 through 13. My dear sons, you should accept a highly elevated Paramahamsa, a spiritually advanced spiritual master. In this way, you should place your faith and love in me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You should detest sense gratification and tolerate the duality of pleasure and pain, which are like the seasonal changes of summer and winter. Try to realize the miserable condition of living entities who are miserable even in the higher planetary systems. Philosophically inquire about the truth. Then undergo all kinds of austerities and penances for the sake of devotional service. Give up the endeavor for sense enjoyment and engage in the service of the Lord. Listen to discussions. Listen to discussions about the Supreme Personality of Godhead and always associate with devotees. Chant about and glorify the Supreme Lord and look upon everyone equally on the spiritual platform. Give up enmity and subdue anger and lamentation. Abandon identifying the self with the body and the home, and practice reading the revealed scriptures. Haribo! We're doing the right thing. It's right here, black and white. Live in a secluded place and practice the process by which you can completely control your life, air, mind, and senses. Have full faith in the revealed scriptures, the Vedic literatures, and always observe celibacy. Perform your prescribed duties and avoid unnecessary talks. Always thinking of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, acquire knowledge from the right source. Thus practicing Bhakti Yoga, you will patiently and enthusiastically be elevated in knowledge and will be able to give up the false ego. I mean, how's that for a series of verses? That's why it lumped it all together into one. It's right there, Sarva, the whole thing.
Spiritual slam dunk.
Slam dunk. He just took it to the house, Sarva. Purport. In these 4 verses, Rishabhadev tells his sons how to become free from the false ego in material, conditional life. One gradually becomes liberated by practicing, as mentioned above. All these prescribed methods enable one to give up the material body, lingam vyapohet, and be situated in his original spiritual body. First of all, one has to accept the bona fide spiritual master. This is advocated by Srila Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Sri Guru Padashraya. To be freed from the entanglement of the material world, one has to approach a spiritual master, tad vijnanartam, sagarum, eva bigachet. By questioning the spiritual master and by serving him, one can advance in spiritual life. When one engages in devotional service, naturally the attraction for personal comfort, for eating, sleeping, and dressing is reduced. By associating with the devotee, a spiritual standard is maintained. The word Maddeva Sangat is very important. There are many so-called religions devoted to the worship of various demigods. But here, good association means association with one who simply accepts Krishna as his worshipable deity. Another important item is dvandva, titiksha. As long as one is situated in the material world, there must be pleasure and pain arising from the material body. As Krishna advises in Bhagavad Gita, tangs titikshasya bharata. One has to learn how to tolerate the temporary pains and pleasures of this material world. One must also be detached from his family and practice celibacy. Sex with one's wife according to the scriptural injunctions is also accepted as brahmacharya, celibacy. But illicit sex is opposed to religious principles, and it hampers advancement in spiritual consciousness. Another important word is vijnana virajita. Everything should be done very scientifically and consciously. One should be a realized soul. In this way one can give up the entanglement of material bondage. As Sri Madhvacharya points out, the sum and substance of these 4 shlokas is that one should refrain from acting out of a desire for sense gratification and should instead always engage in the Lord's loving service. In other words, Bhakti Yoga is the acknowledged path of liberation. Srila Madhvacharya quotes from the Adhyatma, Atmano vihitam karma bharja yet bhanya karmanaha kamasya cha parityago nirihetya yahur utamaha. One should perform activities only for the benefit of the soul. Any other activity should be given up. When a person is situated in this way, he is said to be desireless. Actually, a living entity cannot be totally desireless, but when he desires the benefit of the soul and nothing else, he is said to be desireless. Spiritual knowledge is vijnana samanvitam. When one is fully equipped with jnana and vijnana, he is perfect. Jnana means that one understands the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, to be the Supreme Being. Vijnana refers to the activities that liberate one from the ignorance of material existence. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 2.9.31, Jnanam paramaguyam me yad vijnana samanvitam. Knowledge of the Supreme Lord is very confidential, and the supreme knowledge by which one understands him furthers the liberation of all living entities. This knowledge is vijnana, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 4:9. Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tatpataha chaktudeham punar janma naitimam iti sorjuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. Text 14. As I have advised you, my dear sons, you should act accordingly. Be very careful. By these means, you will be freed from the ignorance of the desire for fruitive activity, and the knot of bondage in the heart will be completely severed. For further advancement, you should also give up the means. That is, you should not become attached to the process of liberation itself. Purport. The process of liberation is Brahma Jigyasa, the search for the absolute truth. Generally, Brahma Jigyasa is called Neti Neti, the process by which one analyzes existence to search out the absolute truth. Neti Neti means not this, not this. It's not this, it's not this, it's not this. You go through your whole life examining, is this the absolute truth? No, no, no. Is this the absolute truth? No, no, no. This method continues as long as one is not situated in his spiritual life. Spiritual life is Brahmabhuta, the self-realized state. In the words of Bhagavad Gita 1854, Brahmabhuta prasanatma nashochati nakankshati samak sarvesha bhuteshu madbhaktim labate param. One who is thus transcendentally situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments nor desires to have anything. He is equally disposed to every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. The idea is to enter into the Parabhakti, the transcendental devotional service of the Supreme Lord. To attain this, one must analyze one's existence. But when one is actually engaged in devotional service, he should not bother seeking out knowledge. By simply engaging in devotional service undeviatingly, one will always remain in the liberated condition. Mam chayobhya bicharina bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samati jaitan brahmabhuya yakalpate. The unflinching execution of devotional service is in itself Brahmabhuta. Another important feature in this connection is anena yogena yatopadesham. The instructions received from the spiritual master must be followed immediately. One should not deviate from or surpass the instructions of the spiritual master. One should not be simply intent on consulting books, but should simultaneously execute the spiritual master's order, yato patesham. Mystic power should be achieved to enable one to give up the material conception. But when one actually engages in devotional service, one does not need to practice the mystic yoga system. The point is that one can give up the practice of yoga, but devotional service cannot be given up. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.7.10, Atmaramas jamunayo nirgranta apyarukrame kurvante haitukim bhaktim itam bhuta guna harihi. Even those who are liberated, Atmarama, must always engage in devotional service. One may give up the practice of yoga when one is self-realized, but at no stage can one give up devotional service. All other activities for self-realization, including yoga and philosophical speculation, may be given up, but devotional service must be retained at all times. Text 15. If one is serious about going back home, back to Godhead, he must consider the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the summum bonum and chief aim of life. If he is a father instructing his sons, a spiritual master instructing his disciples, or a king instructing his citizens, he must instruct them as I have advised. Without being angry, he should continue giving instructions, even if his disciple, son, or citizen is sometimes unable to follow his order. Shall I repeat that? It's very, very relevant and very pertinent. I'm going to read it again, just in case you didn't get it the first time. Without being angry, he should continue giving instructions, even if his disciple, son, or citizen is sometimes unable to follow his order. Ignorant persons, ignorant people, who engage in pious and impious activities should be engaged in devotional service by all means. They should always avoid fruitive activity. If one puts into the bondage of karmic activity his disciple, son, or citizen who is bereft of transcendental vision, how will one profit? It is like leading a blind man to a dark well and causing him to fall in. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 3.26, Nambudi Bedam Janayet Agyanam Karmasanginam Joshiyet Sarvakarmani Vidvan Yukta Samacharan. Let not the wise disrupt the minds of the ignorant who are attached to fruitive action. They should be encouraged not to refrain from work, but to work in the spirit of devotion. Text 16. Due to ignorance, the materialistic person does not know anything about his real self-interest, the auspicious path in life. He is simply bound to material enjoyment by lusty desires, and all his plans are made for this purpose. For temporary sense gratification, such a person creates a society of envy, and due to this mentality, he plunges into the ocean of suffering. Such a foolish person does not even know about this. Purport. The word nashta drishti, one who has no eyes to see the future, is very significant in this verse. Life goes on from one body to another, and the activities performed in this life are enjoyed or suffered in the next life, if not later in this life. One who is unintelligent, who has no eyes to see the future, simply creates enmity and fights with others for sense gratification. As a result, one suffers in the next life. But due to being like a blind man, he continues to act in such a way that he suffers unlimitedly. Such a person is a mudha, one who simply wastes his time and does not understand the Lord's devotional service. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 7.25, Naham prakashyak sarvasya yogamaya samavritaha mudhoyam nabijanati lokomam ajamavyayam. I am never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent. For them I am covered by my eternal creative potency, Yogamaya. And so the deluded world knows me not, who am unborn and infallible. In the Katha Upanishad, it is also stated, Avidyayam antade vartmananak swayam didak panditam manyamanaha. Although ignorant, people still go to other blind men for leadership. As a result, both are subjected to miserable conditions. The blind lead the blind into the ditch. Text 17. If someone is ignorant and addicted to the path of samsara, how can one who is actually learned, merciful, and advanced in spiritual knowledge engage him in fruitive activity and thus further entangle him in material existence? If a blind man is walking down the wrong path, how can a gentleman allow him to continue on his way to danger? How can he approve this method? No wise or kind man can allow this. Sankirtan Yagya ki jai. Srila Prabhupada's book distribution ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol. Text 18. One who cannot deliver his dependents from the path of repeated birth and death should never become a spiritual master, a relative, a father, a husband, a mother, or a worshipable demigod. These are so many important verses in this section. Guru na sasyat, swajano na sasyat, pita na sasyaj, janani na sasyat, daivam na tatsyan, napatishta sasyan, namocha yet yak, samopeta mrityum. It's beautiful Sanskrit. Beautiful Sanskrit. Okay. There are many spiritual masters, but Rishabhadev advises that one should not become a spiritual master if he is unable to save his disciple from the path of birth and death. Unless one is a pure devotee of Krishna, he cannot save himself from the path of repeated birth and death. Tyaktva deham punar janma naiti mam eti sorjana. One can stop birth and death only by returning home back to Godhead. However, who can go back to Godhead unless he understands the Supreme Lord in truth? Janma, karma, chame dibyam, evam yo veti tattvataha. We have many instances in history illustrating Rishabhadev's instructions. Shukracharya was rejected by Bali Maharaj due to his inability to save Bali Maharaj from the path of repeated birth and death. Shukracharya was not a pure devotee. He was more or less inclined to fruitive activity, and he objected when Bali Maharaj promised to give everything to Lord Vishnu. Actually, one is supposed to give everything to the Lord, because everything belongs to the Lord. Consequently, the Supreme Lord advises in Bhagavad Gita 9:27, Yat karoshi yadishnasi yajjatosi dadasi yat tapasyasi konteya tat kadushva madarpanam. O son of Kunti, all that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer and give away, as well as all austerities that you may perform, should be done as an offering unto me. This is bhakti. Unless one is devoted, he cannot give everything to the Supreme Lord. Unless one can do so, he cannot become a spiritual master, husband, father, or mother. Similarly, the wives of the Brahmanas who were performing sacrifices gave up their relatives just to satisfy Krishna. This is an example of a wife rejecting a husband who cannot deliver her from impending dangers of birth and death. Similarly, Prahlad Maharaj rejected his father, and Bharat Maharaj rejected his mother, Janani Nasasyat. The word Daivam indicates a demigod, or one who accepts worship from a dependent. Ordinarily, the spiritual master, husband, father, mother, or superior relative accepts worship from an inferior relative. But here, Rishabhadev forbids this. First, the father, spiritual master, or husband must be able to release the dependent from repeated birth and death. If he cannot do this, he plunges himself into the ocean of reproachment for his unlawful activities. Everyone should be very responsible and take charge of his dependents, just as a spiritual master takes charge of his disciple, or a father takes charge of his son. All these responsibilities cannot be discharged honestly unless one can save the dependent from repeated birth and death. Text 19. My transcendental body, Satchidananda Vigraha, looks exactly like a human form, but it is not a material human body. It is inconceivable. I am not forced by nature to accept a particular type of body. I take on a body by my own sweet will. My heart is also spiritual, and I always think of the welfare of my devotees. Therefore, within my heart can be found the process of devotional service, which is meant for the devotees. Far from my heart have I abandoned irreligion, adharma, and non-devotional activities. They do not appeal to me. Due to all these transcendental qualities, people generally pray to me as Rishabhadev, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the best of all living entities. Purport. In this verse, the words idam sharidam mama durvi vibhavyam are very significant. Generally, we experience two energies, material energy and spiritual energy. We have some experience of the material energy, earth, water, fire, earth, water, air, fire, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego. Because in the material world, everyone's body is composed of these elements. Within the material body is the spirit soul, but we cannot see it with the material eyes. When we see a body full of spiritual energy, it is very difficult for us to understand how the spiritual energy can have a body. It is said that Lord Rishabhadev's body is completely spiritual. Therefore, for a materialistic person, it is very difficult to understand. For a materialistic person, the completely spiritual body is inconceivable. We have to accept the version of the Vedas when our experimental perception cannot understand a subject. As stated in Brahma Samhita, Ishwarat Paramak Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha. The Supreme Lord has a body with form, but that body is not composed of material elements. It is made of spiritual bliss, eternity, and living force. By the inconceivable energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord can appear before us in His original spiritual body. But because we have no experience of the spiritual body, we are sometimes bewildered and see the form of the Lord as material. The Mayavadi philosophers are completely unable to conceive of a spiritual body. They say that the spirit is always impersonal, and whenever they see something personal, they take it for granted that it is material. In Bhagavad Gita 9:11 it is said, Abhajananti na mam mudha manushim tanamashritam param bhavamajananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature and my supreme dominion over all that be. Unintelligent people think that the Supreme Lord accepts a body composed of the material energy. We can easily understand the material body, but we cannot understand the spiritual body. Therefore, Rishabhadev says, Idam Sharidam Mama Durvibhavyam. In the spiritual world, everyone has a spiritual body. I'll repeat that. Idam Sharidam Mama Durvibhavyam. In the spiritual world, everyone has a spiritual body. There is no conception of material existence there. In the spiritual world, there is only service and the receiving of service. There's only sevya, seva, and sevaka. The person served, the process of service, and the servant. These three items are completely spiritual, and therefore the spiritual world is called absolute. There's no tinge of material contamination there. Being completely transcendental to the material conception, Lord Rishabhadev states that his heart is composed of Dharma. Dharma is explained in Bhagavad Gita, Sarvadharman pradityaja mamekam sharanam braja, 1866. In the spiritual world, every living entity is surrendered to the Supreme Lord and is completely on the spiritual platform. Although there are servitors, the served, and service, all are spiritual and variegated. At the present moment, due to our material conception, everything is durvibhavya, inconceivable. Being the supreme, the Lord is called Rishabha, the best. In terms of the Vedic language, nityo nityanam, we are also spiritual, but we are subordinate. I shall repeat that, just in case anybody was asleep. We are also spiritual, but we are subordinate. Krishna, the Supreme Lord, is the foremost living entity. The word Rishabha means the chief or the supreme and indicates the supreme being or God himself. Text 20. My dear boys, you are all born of my heart, which is the seat of all spiritual qualities. Therefore, you should not be like the materialistic and envious men. You should accept your eldest brother, Bharat, who was exalted in devotional service. If you engage yourselves in Bharat's service, your service to him will include my service, and you will rule the citizens automatically. Purport. In this verse, the word hridaya indicates the heart, which is also called uraha, the chest. The heart is situated within the chest. And although instrumentally the son is born with the aid of the genitals, he is actually born from within the heart. According to the heart's situation, the semen takes the form of a body. Therefore, according to the Vedic system, when one begets a child, his heart should be purified through the ritualistic ceremony known as Garbhadana. Rishabhadeva's heart was always uncontaminated and spiritual. Consequently, all the sons born from the heart of Rishabhadev were spiritually inclined. Nonetheless, Rishabhadev suggested that his eldest son was superior, and he advised the others to serve him. All the brothers of Bharat Maharaj were advised by Rishabhadev to adhere to Bharat service. The question may be asked, why one should be attached to family members? For in the beginning it was advised that one should not be attached to home and family. However, it is also advised mahiyasam pada rajobhishekam. One has to serve the mahiyan, one who is very spiritually advanced. Mahatsevam dwaram ahur vimukte. By serving the Mahat, the exalted devotee, one's path for liberation is open. The family of Rishabhadev should not be compared to an ordinary, materialistic family. Bharat Maharaj, Rishabhadev's eldest son, was specifically very exalted. For this reason, the other sons were advised to serve him for his pleasure. That was to be their duty. The Supreme Lord was advising Bharat Maharaj to be the chief ruler of the planet. This is the real plan of the Supreme Lord. In the battle of Kurukshetra, we find that Lord Krishna wanted Maharaj Yudhishthira to be the supreme emperor of this planet. He never wanted Duryodhana to take the post. As stated in the previous verse, Lord Rishabhadev's heart is hridayam yatra dharma. The characteristic dharma is also explained in Bhagavad Gita. Surrender under the Supreme Personality of Godhead. To protect dharma, pritranaya sadhunam, the Lord always wants the ruler of the earth to be a devotee. Then everything goes on nicely for the benefit of everyone. As soon as a demon rules the earth, everything becomes chaotic. What to speak of a whole bunch of them are doing it at the same time. The chaos increases exponentially. At the present moment, the world is inclined toward the democratic process. But the people in general are all contaminated by the mode of passion and ignorance. Consequently, they cannot select the right person to head the government. The president is selected by the votes of ignorant Shudras. Therefore, another Shudra is elected, and immediately the entire government becomes polluted. If people strictly followed the principles of Bhagavad Gita, they would elect a person who is the Lord's devotee. Then automatically there would be good government. Rishabhadev therefore recommended Bharat Maharaj as the emperor of this planet. Serving a devotee means serving the Supreme Lord, for a devotee always represents the Lord. When a devotee is in charge, the government is always congenial and beneficial for everyone. One more verse, two more verses. Text 21 and 22. Of the two energies, manifest, spirit and dull matter, beings possessing living force, vegetables, grass, trees, and plants, are superior to dull matter, stone, earth, etc. Superior to non-moving plants and vegetables are worms and snakes, which can move. Superior to worms and snakes are animals that have developed intelligence. Superior to animals are human beings, and superior to human beings are ghosts, because they have no material bodies. Superior to ghosts are the Gandharvas, and superior to them are the Siddhas. Superior to the Siddhas are the Kinnaras, and superior to them are the Asuras. Superior to the Asuras are the demigods, and of the demigods, Indra, the king of heaven is supreme. Superior to Indra are the direct sons of Lord Brahma, sons like King Daksha, and supreme among Brahma's sons is Lord Shiva. Since Lord Shiva is the son of Lord Brahma, Brahma is considered superior. But Brahma is also subordinate to me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because I am inclined to the Brahmanas are best of all. Purport. In this verse, the Brahmanas are given a position superior to that of the Supreme Lord. The idea is that the government should be conducted under the guidance of the Brahmanas. Although Rishabdev recommended his eldest son, Bharat, as emperor of the earth, he still had to follow the instructions of the Brahmanas in order to govern the world perfectly. The Lord is worshipped as Brahmanya Deva. The Lord is very fond of devotees or Brahmanas. This does not refer to the so-called caste Brahmanas, but to qualified Brahmanas. A Brahmana should be qualified with the 8 qualities mentioned in text 24, such as Shama, Dhamma, Satya, and Titiksha. The Brahmanas should always be worshipped, and under their guidance, the ruler should discharge his duty and rule the citizens. Unfortunately, in this age of Kali, the executive is not selected by very intelligent people, nor is he guided by qualified Brahmanas. Consequently, chaos results. The mass of people should be educated in Krishna consciousness, so that according to the democratic process, they can select a first-class devotee like Bharat Maharaj to head the government. If the head of the state is guided by qualified Brahmanas, everything is completely perfect. In this verse, the evolutionary process is indirectly mentioned. The modern theory that life evolves from matter is to some extent supported in this verse because it is stated, Bhuteshu virudbhya. That is, the living entities evolve from vegetables, grass, plants, and trees, which are superior to dull matter. In other words, matter also has the potency to manifest living entities in the form of vegetables. In this sense, life comes out of matter, but matter also comes out of life. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 10.8, Aham sarvasya prabhavo mattak sarvam pavartate. I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. There are 2 energies, material and spiritual, and both originally come from Krishna. Krishna is the supreme living being. Although it may be said that in the material world a living force is generated from matter, it must be admitted that originally matter is generated from the supreme living being. Nityo nityanam, chaitanas chaitananam. The conclusion is that everything, both material and spiritual, is generated from the supreme being. From the evolutionary point of view, perfection is reached when the living entity obtains the platform of a Brahmana. A Brahmana is a worshipper of the Supreme Brahman, and the Supreme Brahman worships the Brahmana. Whoa! Read that again. A Brahmana is a worshipper of the Supreme Brahman, and the Supreme Brahman worships the Brahmana. In other words, the devotee is subordinate to the Supreme Lord, and the Lord is inclined to see to the satisfaction of his devotee. That's the spiritual world. A Brahman is called Dvijadeva, and the Lord is called Dvijadeva Deva. He is the Lord of Brahmanas. The evolutionary process is also explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya chapter 19, wherein it is said that there are two types of living entities, moving and non-moving. Among moving entities, there are birds, beasts, aquatics, human beings, and so on. Of these, the human beings are supposed to be the best, but they are few. Of these small numbers of human beings, there are many low-class human beings, like mlechas, pulindas, baudas, and shabaras. The human being elevated enough to accept the Vedic principles is superior. Among those who accept the Vedic principles, generally known as Varnashram, presently known as the Hindu system, few actually follow these principles. Of those who actually follow the Vedic principles, most perform fruitive activity or pious activity for elevation to a higher position. Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschit yatati siddhaye. Out of many attached to fruitive activity, one may be a jnani, that is, one philosophically inclined and superior to the karmis. Yatatam apisiddhanam kaschin mam veti tatpataha. Out of many jnanis, one may be liberated from material bondage, and out of many millions of liberated jnanis, one may become a devotee of Krishna. All glories to the devotees of Krishna. Always remember that and always become satisfied with being a devotee of Krishna. Don't be dissatisfied. As soon as you become dissatisfied, you've fallen from the principle of pure devotional service. Unless, of course, that dissatisfaction means I'm not advanced enough. So let me become more advanced. Let me serve more. Let me be more humble. Okay, we'll stop there for tonight. Now, I'd like to make a humble request that somebody in this room change those two bulbs. Maybe that's what that's about. I don't know. But there's 1, 2, 3 bulbs out. I don't need to show it. Is there enough light to show the picture? That's Krishna's special mercy. Okay. Now that we have our new, by the grace of Shwetadeep Prabhu, first class microphones. And I want to caution everyone that when you get the microphone, just hold it and speak into it. Don't, fiddle with it. Because as soon as you fiddle with it, these are very sensitive mics. And on the other side, it sounds... and then people can't hear what you're saying. We got a big audience, 1,400, over 1,400, maybe not every night, but we're definitely averaging over 100 or 200 a night.
Our average is about 500.
Not bad if you ask me. Of course, who asked me? Sorry.
Bigger than the Sunday feast.
What? What are you doing over there, Maharaj? You're not talking to anybody. Come over here and hear. Okay. I mean, there were so many things we heard just now that were so nectarian and so put together in such a way as to enlighten us and answer all our doubts and questions. But still, if anything stuck out in your mind and you want to reflect on it, or you want to drill down, as they say in the pundit land. Okay, go ahead.
We read, one has to serve a Mahiyan. Correct? Mahiyan.
Mahiyan.
One who is very spiritually advanced. By serving a Mahat, the exalted devotee, one's path for liberation is open. Yesterday you made a comment, I forgot who, but you said that one Vaishnava gave classes 3 different years, and every year he got the same stipend?
No, it was every year the devotees from Bengal used to come and visit Lord Chaitanya. And 3 of those years, there was one devotee who asked the question of Lord Chaitanya when he gave them the instructions to go home and serve the Vaishnavas. And they asked 3 years in a row, who's a Vaishnava? And the first year he said, anyone who has chanted Hare Krishna even once should be considered a Vaishnava, and you should serve them. And the second year they asked the same question, and he said, anyone who is engaged in serving the devotees and spiritual master you should serve him. And the third year he said, anyone who upon seeing him you feel like chanting Hare Krishna, you should serve him. So the purport of that is that we should respect all devotees. And practically speaking, all devotees means all devotees, not just the ones who were sitting up here wearing a bib and, always piping off. All devotees, anyone who's chanting Hare Krishna, and even the people who come to the feast, and sometimes they can be pretty unreasonable and, apparently obnoxious sometimes, the way they express themselves and the way they look down on others, and, neophytes, materialistic devotees. But still, Lord Chaitanya accepted them as devotees, and we should give all of them respect. And then your heart, by doing that, your heart becomes clean. And by doing that, as your heart becomes cleaned, you'll become more inclined to serve the advanced devotees, especially. And in that way you advance in devotional life. Yes, Pranata. How are we doing sound-wise? You must be monitoring.
Yeah, it's very good.
It's good? Both of them are good? Okay. I'm not speaking too loud. I feel like I'm yelling today because my voice is a little weak from the weather. And I'm yelling.
It's very audible. It's good.
Very audible. Okay.
I just thought this was interesting, and I was hoping maybe you could make a connection, a deeper connection.
Sounds like you're about to make one. Go ahead.
In the purport of text 9, Prabhupada says, when by associating with sadhus and engaging in devotional service, one is gradually freed from the material conception due to knowledge, practice, and detachment. The knot of attachment in the heart is slackened. Thus one can get freed from conditional life and become eligible to return home back to God. And then a little bit later in the purport we heard, but when one is actually engaged in devotional service, he should not bother seeking out knowledge. And it just kind of struck me when I heard that.
Yeah. This is it can seem confusing, but jnana vijnana samitam yajgyatva mokshisheshu bhat. So bahunam janmanamante jnanavan mam prapadyate vasudevam savamiti samahatma sadurlabha. So this means that the jnanis are, searching for the truth. And if they're actually searching for the truth, then the knowledge that they become attached to leads them to Krishna. When one comes to Krishna consciousness, he's no longer as interested in the knowledge part of it, or even to the service part of it, but he's attached to Krishna personally. So when a person comes to the point of being actually attached to Krishna personally, to his form and personal devotional service, then the other knowledge leading up to liberation, especially the knowledge leading up to impersonal liberation, is no longer useful or no longer attractive. But that doesn't mean that we don't want to know more and more about Krishna. So as we advance in Krishna consciousness, we want to know more and more about Krishna. And the Bhagavatam teaches us to become, knower of everything, actually, because, if you know Krishna, you know everything. But part of what that means is because the Bhagavatam and the Gita are literary incarnations of Krishna. So it's not that we become not interested in the knowledge in the Bhagavatam. We become interested in the knowledge of the Vedas or the Upanishads or Vedanta Sutra. That's why Vyasadeva wasn't satisfied after he finished compiling all those literatures, or editing. He edited the Vedas. He didn't compile, but he edited the 4 Vedas and the Upanishads. And then he edited the Puranas also. He didn't, but he wrote, and the Bhagavatam. But he wrote the Mahabharata, the Vedanta Sutra, and the he didn't actually write the Srimad Bhagavatam, but the Bhagavatam came from him, through him. So it doesn't mean that we, give up hearing Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. Those are non-different from Krishna, so we want to absorb ourselves in the knowledge coming from those literatures because they are non-different than Krishna. But the Vedas and Upanishads, they are busy analyzing what's the difference between matter and spirit, and analyzing so many things, even some of the qualities of Krishna, or of the Absolute, of the Supreme Absolute. But it doesn't emphasize the person, personal characteristics, the abode, the ways of serving and loving and exchanging. That's why at the end of the reading it talked about how in the spiritual world there's just 3 things. There's the servant, the service, and the served. That's all that's going on. There's no activities which are meant to get me something or avoid something. Material existence is always trying to get something and to avoid something, to avoid distress and to get happiness. But spiritual is full of happiness. There's nothing but happiness. Satchidananda. The spiritual body is made of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. The spiritual body is inside of us, and therefore we want to be happy. We don't want to die, and we want to know everything. The combined desire of all the human beings on the earth to know everything results in what? The internet. And once they find out what's going on, they go, and then it just creates chaos because all they want to know is about knowledge about what's going on in the material world. So we're not interested so much in that knowledge. Is that something? Something?
Thank you.
Honest John has got something to say. Give him that. Pass over that mic.
If people strictly follow the principles of the Bhagavad Gita, they would elect a person who is the Lord's devotee, then automatically it would be a good government. Rishabdev therefore recommended Bharata Maharaja as the emperor of the planet. Okay, we would elect a sure. Then automatically there would be a good government. I mean, the president is selected by the votes of ignorant Sudras, therefore another Sudra is elected, and immediately the entire government becomes polluted. Are we allowed to get involved in politics and make a party and
Well,
put
there,
people in?
at one point in the history of our movement, Prabhupada allowed a devotee who was very inclined, a few devotees who were very politically inclined, to get into politics. And my godbrother Balavanta, he ran for mayor of Atlanta, and the party was called In God We Trust Party. He didn't get so many votes, but it gave us a platform to get out there and stump, like to go on the stump and preach on the stump. But what happened was they got too much absorbed in political thoughts, and Prabhupada pulled the plug. And then from then on, he advised us, actually, we're not interested in politics. Let them be and let us advise them. And that's the system here that's described by Rishabdev. That the kings are actually qualified and the Brahmins advise them so that everything's run very nicely according to Krishna's will. Now, I read a very interesting article quite some time ago, because I'm a writer and an editor, and when you want to be able to write well, you have to read good writers who write well. Not that the subject matter is scripture, but sometimes people are very good writers, and we like to improve our writing skills. And I read this one article by Sullivan. I don't remember his full name, but he was a writer for the New York magazine, very high-end magazine. And and I got attracted to it because it was an analysis of democracy. And so I got, let's compare this analysis to Prabhupada's analysis. So I started to read it, and it sounded as if he was going in the same direction as Prabhupada, how useless it is. And then, as he kept analyzing, he said, now if you would think logically, as democracy evolves, when you come to the end game, it would be anarchy, because it's for freedom and by the people, for the people, and everything. Everyone, pretty soon everybody wants their own thing, and it just becomes anarchy. But he said, and I thought this was very interesting, he said actually where it ends is in tyranny. Because people can't be satisfied with, being in chaos. They've got to try to bring it together, So the point that Prabhupada is making here, and that Rishabda is making, is that really the type of government isn't so important, but the quality of the leadership. Because whatever kind of government you have a leader. He's a president or a prime minister or or a king, or a dictator, or anyway, there's always somebody that's got to be in charge. It's nature, can't avoid it. So Prabhupada didn't insist on the system so much as he insisted on the consciousness of the leadership. And if it's Krishna conscious leadership, then things will go better. But Kali Yuga means that Kalo means Kali, Shudra means Shudra, Sambhava means born. Everyone's born Shudra in Kali Yuga, everyone. There's no Garbhadana Sanskara anymore. There's no, as we read in one of the first purports we heard about, that before the man and woman unite, man and wife unite to conceive, they do spiritual activities so that they're both in as good as consciousness as possible. And it's not just done as a fit of passion, it's actually done consciously. And as consciously as it's done, that's the quality of the of the child that will be born. And therefore, if we want peace on the earth, you have to have a good population. Therefore, good grihastas are necessary. Because from good grihastas come good brahmacharis. And from good brahmacharis and good grihastas come good sannyasis. And then, those different orders of society, which this is the varnashram system. I mean, the law is there in every society. There's intellectual people, there's police, military, politician types. There's businessmen and agricultural people. There's workers. That's the basic structure for all of human society, because it's created by Krishna like that. But in the varnashram system, the difference is that they're all doing it for the pleasure of Krishna or Vishnu. There's a nice purport here where Srila Prabhupada states, it's 248 in case anybody wants to make a note and read it later, just to check to see if I'm doing the right thing. The verse says, perform your duty equipoised, O Arjuna, abandoning all attachment to success or failure. Such equanimity is called yoga. So here it means even doing your duty is yoga, if it's done properly. Then in the last paragraph of the purport, Prabhupada says, Arjuna is a Kshatriya, and as such he is participating in the Varnashram Dharma institution. It is said in the Vishnu Purana that in the Varnashrama Dharma, the whole aim is to satisfy Vishnu. No one should satisfy himself, as is the rule in the material world, but one should satisfy Krishna. So unless one satisfies Krishna, one cannot correctly observe the principles of Varnashram Dharma. Indirectly, Krishna was advised to act as Krishna told him. So what happens is, if the different sectors or sections of human society do not try to satisfy Krishna, then they compete with one another for supremacy. And therefore there's chaos. And as the human society goes down as a result of all that, it goes from the Brahmanas being in control to the Kshatriyas being in control, the kings, and to the Vaishnavas being under control, and that's what's happening right now, to the Shudras being controlled. That'll be communism. And as it goes in that direction, the human qualities of human society get gradually more and more lost, and the humans act more like animals. So Prabhupada's hope is that we become advanced devotees in our movement, the International Society for Christian Consciousness, and then we will actually support one another, cooperate with one another, whatever our different duties are, and we won't compete with each other, Therefore the Bhagavatam kicks out cheating religion in the very beginning, Dharma Kaitavo. Dharma Kaitavo. Paramo Nirmatsaranam Satam. This book is Paramo Nirmatsaranam Satam. It is for those who are not envious of one another, and especially of Krishna, and who are honest. So when we're honest, we don't make up things and gossip and fault find with one another, and therefore the atmosphere becomes more congenial and more united and more spiritual. Confirmed. Now they're protesting. They're protesting. Yes, Sarva. This is the last one. Sarva's getting in the last word.
I believe when this devotee was running for mayor in Atlanta, he was doing fairly well getting free publicity and speaking about Krishna, but when he wanted some money for his campaign, as I recall, he wrote to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada didn't like the idea of using money that could be used to print our books and do directly Krishna conscious activities for the politics, because in the politics these days it takes a lot of money to run. And there is
Well, in
one,
those days it was peanuts compared to what it takes now.
yeah. But there's Tulsi Gabbard, this lady that's actually a devotee of Krishna. She's trying to become president, but she's got less than 1% of the support, in polls. And just to get into the debates with other candidates, she has to raise a whole lot of money.
Millions of dollars.
Yeah, so it's a whole process.
You know how much it takes to be the president now?
$1 billion?
$1 billion. That's right. That's what it takes.
So whether to spend $1 billion for printing Prabhupada's books or...
Yeah, that's true. Although that was just a little part of why he pulled the plug. That was part of it. But the main part was he saw that there was kind of a fruitive mentality that was coming from that. But what you were saying is kind of like symbolic of that, what he saw.
You can change the world one devotee at a time.
Yeah, one person
One
at a
neighbor
time.
at a time.
One person at a time.
One person at a time.
That's what we're trying to do here. That's what this little exercise that I'm doing, that I made my vow to do, is all about. We'll see. Everybody knows what I'm doing. We'll see who comes to hear. Hare Krishna. That's why I like to be with you all. My favorite people on the earth. All of you. Those who come every day. Hare Krishna. Vishabdadev ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. See you tomorrow night, 6:30, same place, same station. Haribol. Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. Our way back home, back to Godhead, by associating directly with Srila Prabhupada every day, hearing at least an hour directly of his purports read by a person who's really attached to them, and that's me. I'll cop to that. I'll admit that I'm very attached to reading these books. I'm going to tell you something. Oh, I don't have the phone. It's right on the phone. Anyway, my godbrother Tejas Das, here's what he said. I sent him the sample. Tejas Das was already a devotee when he met Prabhupada in India, and he belonged to the Peace Corps, and he learned language, he learned Sanskrit. He was, he'd already accepted and understood, because he's very smart, New York Jew, smart. And by the time he met Prabhupada, he already understood a lot. But when he met Prabhupada, it was like, that was it. He could understand. He had met the master. So here's what he said. Hare Krishna Shobha. Hare Krishna Dhamachan. Listen to this. This is pretty far out stuff. Because this is Tejas. He doesn't ever say things like this. I do not flatter, although I say kind words. The clarity of your consciousness is clearly felt in the compatible quality of your reading and the recording itself. I could literally listen for every moment of the day. It is just as if listening to Srila Prabhupada and your reading does something in addition, that it allows the hearer to experience the superlative quality of Srila Prabhupada's pure mind and intelligence, which is a radiation of his pure heart. and the residence of Krishna there in loving exchange. Haribo. Outstanding, astounding, outstanding, 100% on the mark. You take the transparent position of being shiksha, guru to all who listen, yet this is the perfect situation to avoid any chance of pride, because it is all Srila Prabhupada. Haribo! And your credit is simply that you are transparent, yet adding the ecstasy of taste for each word and ever-increasing realization that come from rapt hearing and speaking. It is clear that you are as much hearing as you are speaking. Hare Krishna. That.
Came late. Who wrote that, Maharaj?
You want me to hear? You want me to read it again? No, I started.
I can hear it online.
Oh yes, you do. You can reread, rehear it, reread, rehear. Okay. Okay. Sanatana Goswami had something to say about the Srimad Bhagavatam, and he was an eternal servant of Radharani in Goloka Vrindavan. So we can take it from him. Right? Right. Srimad Bhagavatam Mahima Stotram from Sri Krishna Lila Stava by Srila Sanatana Goswami. It goes like this. Sarva Shastra Dipiyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidwandoditaditya Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master, Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Shri Krishna. Paramananda Bhataya Premavarshakshadayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Shri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguro Man Mahadana Man Nistadanga Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadhu tadayin adini chochatakara hanamunchagadachin mam premna ritkandayospuda. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 So here we are. Whoops. Here we were. How did it get there? Okay. Here we are. Srimad Bhagavatam. Canto 5. Chapter 5. 23. I went to the Bhagavad Gita somewhere because I did it in a hurry, and this is the lesson. Don't do things in a hurry. The more you do things in too much of a hurry, otherwise you make mistakes. And every time you make a mistake, you got to pay for it. Hare Krishna. That goes on every level. Okay. Yes. So, Rishabdev, the teachings of Lord Rishabdev to his 100 sons is one of the classic instructions in the Bhagavatam and one of Prabhupada's favorites. especially these, and the teachings of Prahlad Maharaj to his students. I mean, not students, his classmates, which ended up being his students. These are some of Prabhupada's favorite verses for teaching us what the material world is, who we are who we are, and what is the relationship. Okay. Text 23. O respectful brahmanas, as far as I'm concerned, no one is equal to or superior to the brahmanas in this world. I do not find anyone comparable to them. When people know my motive after performing rituals according to the Vedic principles, they offer food to me with faith and love through the mouth of a brahmana. When food is thus offered unto me, I eat it with full satisfaction. Indeed, I derive more pleasure from food offered in that way than from food offered in the sacrificial fire. Purport. According to the Vedic system, after the sacrificial ceremony, the brahmanas are invited to eat the remnants of the food offered food. When the brahmanas eat the food, it is to be considered directly eaten by the Supreme Lord. Thus, no one can be compared to qualified brahmanas. The perfection of evolution is to be situated on the Brahminical platform. Any civilization not based on Brahminical culture or guided by brahmanas is certainly a condemned civilization. Presently, human civilization is based on sense gratification, and consequently more and more people are becoming addicted to different types of things. No one respects Brahminical culture. Demoniac civilization is attached to ugra karma, horrible activities, and big industries are created to satisfy unfathomable lusty desires. Consequently, the people are greatly harassed by governmental taxation. The people are irreligious and do not perform the sacrifices recommended in Bhagavad Gita. Yagyad bhavati parjanya. By the performance of sacrifice, clouds form and rain falls. Due to the sufficient rainfall, there is sufficient production of food. Guided by the brahmanas, society should follow the principles of Bhagavad Gita. Then people will become very happy. Anad bhavanti bhutani. When animals and man are sufficiently fed with grains, they become stronger, their hearts become tranquil, and their brains peaceful. They can then advance in spiritual life, life's ultimate destination. Text 24. The Vedas are my eternal transcendental sound incarnation. Therefore, the Vedas are Shabda Brahman. In this world, the Brahmanas thoroughly study all the Vedas, and because they assimilate the Vedic conclusions, they are able to be considered the Vedas personified. The Brahmanas are situated in the supreme transcendental mode of nature, Sattva-gun. Because of this, they are fixed in mind control, Shama, sense control, Dhamma, and truthfulness, Satya. They describe the Vedas in their original sense, and out of mercy, Anugraha. They preach the purpose of the Vedas to all conditioned souls. They practice penance, tapasya, and tolerance, titiksha, and they realize the position of the living entity and the Supreme Lord, Anubhava. These are the 8 qualifications of the Brahmanas. Therefore, among all living entities, no one is superior to the Brahmanas. Purport. This is a true description of a Brahmana. A Brahmana is one who has assimilated the Vedic conclusions by practicing mind and sense control. He speaks the true version of all the Vedas. As confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Vedaish Chasarvardaham eva vedyaha. By studying the Vedas, one should come to understand the transcendental position of Lord Sri Krishna. One who has actually assimilated the essence of the Vedas can preach the truth. He is compassionate to conditioned souls who are suffering the threefold miseries of this conditional world, due to their not being Krishna conscious. A Brahmana should take pity on the people and preach Krishna consciousness in order to elevate them. Sri Krishna himself, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, personally descends into this universe from the spiritual kingdom to teach conditioned souls about the values of spiritual life. He tries to induce them to surrender unto him. Similarly, the Brahmanas do the same thing. After assimilating the Vedic instructions, they assist the Supreme Lord in his endeavor to deliver conditioned souls. The Brahmanas are very dear to the Supreme Lord due to their high sattva guna qualities, and they also engage in welfare activities for all conditioned souls in the material world. Text 25. I am fully opulent, almighty, and superior to Lord Brahma and Indra, the king of the heavenly planets. I am also the bestower of all happiness obtained in the heavenly kingdom and by liberation. Nonetheless, the Brahmanas do not seek material comforts from me. They are very pure and do not want to possess anything. They simply engage in my devotional service. What is the need of their asking for material benefits from anyone else? Purport. The perfect Brahminical qualification is stated herein. Akinchananam mai bhakti bhajam. The Brahmanas are always engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. Consequently, they have no material wants, nor do they possess material things. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 11:8, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains the position of pure Vaishnavas who are anxious to return home, back to Godhead. Nishkinchanasya bhagavat bhajanon mukhasya. Those who actually want to return home, return back to Godhead, are niskinchana. That is, they have no desire for material comfort. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advises, Sandarshanam Vishayinam Atiyoshitam Cha Ha Hanta Hanta Vishabhakshanato Pisadu. Material opulence and sense gratification through the association of women are more dangerous than poison. Brahmanas who are very pure, who are pure Vaishnavas, always engage in the Lord's service and are devoid of any desire for material gain. The Brahmanas do not worship demigods like Lord Brahma, Indra, or Lord Shiva for any material comfort. They do not ask the Supreme Lord for material profit. Therefore it is concluded that the Brahmanas are the supreme living entities of this world. Shri Kapila Deva also confirms this in Srimad Bhagavatam 3:29-33. Tasman mai arpitashesha kriyartatma nirantaraha mai arpitat manapungso mai sanyasta napashyami padam bhutam akartu samadarshanat. The Brahmanas are always dedicated to the Lord's service with their bodies, words, and mind. There is no person, there is no better person than a Brahmana who thus engages himself and dedicates himself to the Supreme Lord. Text 26. My dear sons, you should not envy any living entity, be he moving or non-moving. Knowing that I am situated in them, you should offer respect to all of them at every moment. In this way, you offer respect to me. Purport. In this verse, the word bibikta drigbihi, meaning without envy, is used. All living entities are the abode of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in His Paramatma feature, as confirmed in Brahma Samhita, Andantarastam Paramanu Chayantarastam. The Lord is situated in this universe as Garbhodakashayi Vishnu and Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. He is also situated within every atom. According to the Vedic statement, Ishavasyamadang Sarvam. The Supreme Lord is situated everywhere, and wherever He is situated is His temple. We even offer respect to a temple from a distant place. All living entities should similarly be offered respect. I'll read that again. This is really important stuff. The Supreme Lord is situated everywhere, and wherever He is situated is His temple. We even offer respect to a temple from a distant place. And all living entities should similarly be offered respect. This is different from the theory of pantheism, which holds that everything is God. Everything has a relationship with God, because God is situated everywhere. But we should not make any particular distinction between the poor and the rich, like the foolish worshippers of Daridra Narayana. Narayana is present in the rich as well as the poor. One should not simply think Narayana is situated among the poor. He is everywhere. An advanced devotee will offer respects to everyone, even to cats and dogs. Vidyas vinaya sampane, brahmane gavihastani, shuni chaiva shapati cha, panditat samadarshinaha. The humble sage, by virtue of true knowledge, sees with eagle vision a learned and gentle brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog-eater, outcast. Bhagavad Gita 5:18. This samadarshina, equal vision, should not be mistaken to mean that the individual is the same as the Supreme Lord. They are always distinct. Every individual person is different from the Supreme Lord. It is a mistake to equate the living entity with the individual living entity with the Supreme Lord on the plea of Viviktadrik or Samadrik. The Lord is always in an exalted position, even though He agrees to live everywhere. Srila Madhvacharya, quoting Padma Purana, states, Vivikta drishti jivanam jishnitaya parameshwarasya beda drishti. One who has clear vision and who is devoid of envy can see that the Supreme Lord is separate from all living entities, although He is situated in every living entity. Madhvacharya further quotes from Padma Purana, Upapad dayet paramatmanam jivebhyo yakpade pade Vedanaiva nachai tasmat priyo vishnostukan kaschana. One who sees the living entity and the Supreme Lord as always distinct is very dear to the Lord. Padma Purana also states, Yo Haresh Chaiva Jivanam Veda Bhakta Hare Priyaha. One who preaches that the living entities are separate from the Supreme Lord is very dear to Lord Vishnu. Text 27. The true activity of the sense organs, mind, sight, words, and all the knowledge gathering and working senses is to engage fully in my service. Unless his senses are thus engaged, a living entity cannot think of getting out of the great entanglement of material existence, which is exactly like Yamaraja's stringent rope. Purport. As stated in the Narada Pancharatra, Sarvopadi vinirmuktam tatpadat vena nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhaktir uchate. This is the conclusion of bhakti. All the time, Lord Rishabhadev has been stressing devotional service, and now he is concluding by saying that all the senses should be engaged in the Lord's service. There are 5 senses by which we gather knowledge, and 5 senses with which we work. These 10 senses and the mind should be fully engaged in the Lord's service. Without engaging them in this way, one cannot get out of the clutches of Maya. Text 28. Shukadeva Goswami said, thus the great will-wisher of everyone, the Supreme Lord Rishabhadev, instructed his own sons. Although they were perfectly educated and cultured, he instructed them just to set an example of how a father should instruct his sons before retiring from family life. Sannyasis who are no longer bound by fruitive activity and who have taken to devotional service after all their material desires have been vanquished, to devotional service. Hare Krishna. She looks like she just came back from India. She looks like an Indian walla. That's the way they dress when it's cold in India. Okay, I'm going to start back a little bit. I'll start from the beginning of this translation. Shukadeva Goswami said, thus the great well-wisher of everyone, the Supreme Lord Rishabhadev, instructed his sons. Although they were perfectly educated and cultured, he instructed them just to set an example of how a father should instruct his sons before retiring from family life. Sannyasis who are no longer bound by fruitive activity and who have taken to devotional service after all their material desires have been vanquished also learn by these instructions. Lord Rishabhadev instructed his 100 sons, of whom the eldest, Bharat, was a very advanced devotee and a follower of the Vaishnavas. In order to rule the whole world, the Lord enthroned his eldest son on the royal seat. Thereafter, although still at home, Lord Rishabhadev lived like a madman, naked and with disheveled hair. Then the Lord took the sacrificial fire within himself, and he left Brahmavarta to tour the whole world. Purport. Actually, the instructions given to Lord Rishabhadev's sons were not exactly meant for his sons because they were already educated and highly advanced in knowledge. Rather, these instructions were meant for sannyasis who intend to become advanced devotees. Sannyasis must abide by Lord Rishabhadev's instructions while on the path of devotional service. Lord Rishabhadev retired from family life and lived like a naked madman, even while still with his family. Whoa, Hare Krishna. Well, we don't want to imitate that one, okay? Prabhupada told us, don't try to imitate Lord Rishabhadev. 29. After accepting the feature of an avaduta, a great saintly person without material cares, Lord Rishabhadev passed through human society like a blind, deaf, and dumb man, an idle stone, a ghost, or a madman. Although people called him such names, he remained silent and did not speak to anyone. Purport. The word avaduta refers to one who does not care for social conventions, particularly the varnashram dharma, but one who is situated within himself, fully satisfied by meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's funny, the Supreme Avaduta is Nityananda. Nityananda Maham Nami Sarvananda Karam Param. Harinama Param Devam. He's the Supreme Deity of the Holy Name. And Avaduta Shiromanim. He's the jewel of Avadutas. So here it describes that the Avaduta just takes off all his clothes, runs around, and doesn't act like dumb and deaf and this. But Nityananda because he was acting like a renowned person. He would dress himself up in so much gorgeous jewels and fancy clothes that people said, this guy has nothing to do with spiritual life. And Lord Jananaka, he was in bliss because no one would bother him. Because in India, somebody who dresses like that, he can't be considered to be spiritually advanced. So he just tricked them. Therefore he's called Avaduta Shiromanim, the crest jewel of Avadutas. Okay. Okay. Such a person has already surpassed the clutches of Maya, and he lives completely separate and independent. And how he does that, it's depending on time and circumstances. She definitely acts like he just came back from India, because they don't care. They're completely, they're not conscious of these things at all.
Going through chemotherapy right now, Maharaj.
Oh.
Breast cancer.
Oh, I thought she looked different.
She's just feeling a little better, and she's coming for reading, which is
Oh,
really amazing.
very wonderful.
She was feeling very awful.
Well, thank you for telling us,
Right
so that
now.
I can, Okay, thank you so much. Translation. Rishabhadev began to, but even though before she was sick, she did that kind of thing. Because Indians do that kind of thing. Whether they're sick or not. Translation. Rishabhadev began to tour through cities, villages, mines, countrysides, valleys, gardens, military camps, cow pens, the homes of cowherd men, transient hotels, hills, forests, and hermitages. Wherever he traveled, all bad elements surrounded him, just as flies surround the body of an elephant coming from a forest. He was always being threatened, beaten, urinated upon, and spat upon. Sometimes people threw stones, stool, and dust at him, and sometimes people passed foul air before him. Thus people called him many bad names and gave him a great deal of trouble. But he did not care about this. For he understood that this body is simply meant for such an end. He was situated on the spiritual platform, and, being in his spiritual glory, he did not care for all these material insults. In other words, he completely understood that matter and spirit are separate, and he had no bodily conception. Thus, without being angry at anyone, he walked through the whole world alone. Hare Krishna. Purport. Narottam Das Thakur says, Deha smriti nahiyar sangsara bandhanakan kahantara. When a person fully realizes that the material body and world are temporary, he is not concerned with pain and pleasures of the body. As Sri Krishna advises in Bhagavad Gita 2.14, Matra sparshas tu kaunteya shitoshna sukadukadaha agama payino nityas tungstitikshasya bharata. O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, O scion of Bharat, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. As far as Rishabhadev is concerned, it has already been explained, idam sharidam mamadur vibhavyam. He did not at all possess a material body, and therefore he was tolerant of all the trouble offered to him by the bad elements in society. Consequently, he could tolerate people throwing stool and dust upon him and beating him. His body was transcendental, and consequently did not at all suffer pain. He was always situated in his spiritual bliss. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 1861, Ishwarat sarvabhutanam vriddhasher junatishtati brahmayan sarvabhutani yantra rudani mayaya. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of the material energy. Since the Lord is situated in everyone's heart, He is the heart of hogs and dogs also. He is in the heart of hogs and dogs also. If hogs and dogs in their material bodies live in filthy places, one should not think that the Supreme Personality of Godhead in His Paramatma feature also lives in a filthy place. Although Lord Rishabhadev was maltreated by the bad elements of the world, he was not at all affected. You need a comma there. In the book, is that a comma or a period? Huh? Huh? After world.
There is a comma.
Ah, thank you. Therefore it is stated here, Swamahima Avastanena. He was situated in his own glory. He was never saddened due to being insulted in the many ways described above. Text 31. Lord Rishabhadev's hands and feet, his chest, his very long arms, his shoulders, his face, and every part of his body were all very delicate and symmetrically proportioned. His mouth was beautifully decorated with his natural smile, and he appeared all the more lovely with his reddish eyes spread wide like the petals of a newly grown lotus flower covered with dew in the early morning. Poetry, pure poetry. The irises of his eyes were so pleasing that they removed all the troubles of everyone who saw him. His forehead, ears, neck, nose, and all the other features were very beautiful. His gentle smile always made his face beautiful, so much so that they even attracted the hearts of married women. It was as though they had been pierced by arrows of Cupid. About his head was an abundance of curly, matted brown hair. His hair was disheveled because his body was dirty and not taken care of. He appeared as if he were haunted by a ghost. So this is the glory of Srimad Bhagavatam. The Vedas, the Puranas, the Upanishads, Vedanta Sutta, and Bhagavatam, they're all written in different, same language, Sanskrit, but a little differently, different mood. I heard Gopi Pranadhana Prabhu the other day say that the Vedas, they instruct like a military commander. You do this or we'll take you out and shoot you to being a traitor. And the Puranas, they are more like, or the Vedanta Sutra are more like father. And then the Puranas are more like brother, instructing you. More, a little affectionate and kind of equal to equal. And the Rasa Shastras, they're like lover, speaking in very intimate ways to convince their beloved to do something. So here you see all the difference. You see everything in the Bhagavatams, get everything. Therefore it's very hard for the scholars to figure it out, because they're only figuring out things by mechanical means. A certain dialect here, dialect means it must have been done here by this person. Another dialect must be done from another. They can't conceive that Vyasadeva was the complete literary incarnation of God, and that he could speak all varieties of the language and give advice and injunctions even, and all the different rasas, different moods of language are contained within the Bhagavatam. So here you have these wonderful, let's hear the Sanskrit. Oh, this is very hard to read. This is prose. It's not verse. It's poetry, but it's not verse poetry. Atisugumara karachanorara stala vipulavav angshagala vinanadyavar. And it keeps going on and on like that. I can't do it properly. because I'm not studied in prose reading. Anyway, that's very wonderful explanation. Text 32. When Lord Rishabhdev saw that the general populace was very antagonistic to his execution of mystic yoga, he accepted the behavior of a python in order to counteract their opposition. Thus he stayed in one place and lay down. While lying down, he ate and drank, and he passed stool and urine and rolled in it. Indeed, he smeared his whole body with his own stool and urine so that opposing elements might not come and disturb him. Purport. According to one's destiny, one enjoys allotted happiness and distress, even though one keeps himself in one place. This is the injunction of the Shastras. When one is spiritually situated, he may stay in one place, and all his necessities will be arranged by the arrangement of the Supreme Controller. Unless one is a preacher, there is no need to travel all over the world. A person can stay in one place and execute devotional service suitably according to time and circumstance. When Rishabhadev saw that he was simply being disturbed by traveling throughout the world, he decided to lie down in one place like a python. Thus he ate, drank, and he passed stool and urine and smeared his body with them so that people would not disturb him. 33. Because Lord Rishabhadev remained in that condition, the public did not disturb him, but no bad aroma emanated from his stool and urine. Quite the contrary, his stool and urine were so aromatic that they filled 80 miles of the countryside with a pleasant fragrance. So, unless you can do that, you shouldn't imitate. Purport. From this we can certainly assume that Lord Rishabhadev was transcendently blissful. His stool and urine were so completely different from material stool and urine that they were aromatic. Even in the material world, cow dung is accepted as purified and antiseptic. A person can keep stacks of cow dung in one place and it will not create a bad odor to disturb anyone. We take it for granted that in the material world stool and urine are also pleasant. We can take it for granted that in the spiritual world stool and urine are also pleasantly scented. Indeed, the entire atmosphere became very pleasant due to Lord Rishabhadev's stool and urine. Text 34. In this way, Lord Rishabhadev followed the behavior of cows, deer, and crows. Sometimes he moved or walked, and sometimes he sat down in one place. Sometimes he lay down, behaving exactly like cows, deer, and crows. In that way he ate, drank, passed stool and urine, and cheated the people in this way. Purport. Being the Supreme Personality, but you know it takes one to know one. In the 11th canto, I think it's the 11th canto, 9th canto, 11th, 9th or 11th canto, there's a story of the Avadhuta Brahmana that Prahlad Maharaj, while he was touring around, came in contact with. And he looked at him and he looked just like it's described here, like Rishabhadev looked, like he was laying down and he was all disheveled. But Prahlad Maharaj could see that he was actually beautiful and intelligent and learned just by looking at him. So he inquired him, says, "Why are you laying here like this? I can see that you're actually a very learned, beautiful person." And the person looked at him and said, "Oh, okay, so this person is not going to throw something at me." So he started to speak, and his words were like flowing river of nectar. Text 35. O King Parikshit, just to show all the yogis the mystic process, Lord Rishabhadev, the plenary expansion of Lord Krishna, performed wonderful activities. Actually, he was the master of liberation and was fully absorbed in transcendental bliss, which increased 1,000-fold. Lord Krishna, Vasudeva, the son of Vasudeva, is the original source of Lord Rishabhadev. There is no difference in their constitution, and consequently, Lord Rishabhadev awakened the loving symptoms of crying, laughing, and shivering. He was always absorbed in transcendental love. Due to this, all mystic powers automatically approached him, such as the ability to travel in outer space at the speed of mind, to appear and disappear, to enter the bodies of others, and to see things far, far away. Although he could do all this, he did not exercise these powers. Purport. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 19:149, it is said, Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Ataeva Santa Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Sakali Ashanta. The word Shanta means completely peaceful. Unless all one's desires are fulfilled, one cannot be peaceful. Everyone is trying to fulfill his aspirations and desires, be they material or spiritual. Those in the material world are ashanta, without peace, because they have so many desires to fulfill. The pure devotee, however, is without desire, anyabilashita shunya. A pure devotee is completely free from all kinds of material desire. Karmis, on the other hand, are simply full of desires because they try to enjoy sense gratification. They are not peaceful in this life nor the next, during the past, present, or future. Similarly, jnanis are always aspiring after liberation and trying to become one with the Supreme. Yogis are aspiring after many siddhis, powers, anima, lagima, prapti, etc. However, a devotee is not at all interested in these things because he is fully independent on the mercy of Krishna. Krishna is Yogeshwara, the possessor of all mystic powers, siddhis, and he is Atmarama, fully self-satisfied. The yoga siddhis are described in this verse. One can fly in outer space without the aid of a machine, and he can travel at the speed of mind. This means that as soon as a yogi desires to go somewhere within this universe, or even beyond this universe, he can do so immediately. One cannot estimate the speed of mind, for within a second, the mind can go many millions of miles. Sometimes yogis enter the bodies of other people and act as they desire when their bodies are not working properly. When the body becomes old, a perfect yogi can find a young, able body. Giving up his old body, the yogi can enter into the young body and act as he pleases. Being a plenary expansion of Lord Vasudeva, Lord Rishabhadev possessed all these mystic yoga powers, but he was satisfied with his devotional love of Krishna, which was evinced by the ecstatic symptoms such as crying, laughing, and shivering. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 5th canto, 5th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Lord Rishabhadev's Teachings to His Son. Okay, these are the Lord's exhibiting the standards of perfect behavior in this material world. Moving on to chapter 6. The activities of Lord Rishabhadev, as if we haven't already heard some activities of Lord Rishabhadev. This chapter tells how Lord Rishabhadev left his body. He was not attached to his body, even when it was being burned up in a forest fire. When the seed of devotion, of fruitive activity, is burned by the fire of knowledge, the spiritual properties and mystic powers are automatically manifest. Yet Bhakti Yoga is not affected by these mystic powers. An ordinary yogi is captivated by mystic powers and his progress checked. Therefore, a perfect yogi does not welcome them. Because the mind is restless and undependable, it must remain always under control. Even the mind of the advanced yogi, Sobari, created such a disturbance that he lost his yogic mystic powers. Due to a restless mind, even a very advanced yogi can fall down. The mind is so restless that it induces even a perfect yogi to be controlled by the senses. Therefore, Lord Rishabhadev, for the instruction of all yogis, showed the process of quitting the body. While traveling in South India, through the provinces of Karnataka, Konka, Benka, and Kutaka, Lord Rishabhadev arrived in the neighborhood of Kutakachala. Suddenly, there was a forest fire that burned the forest and Lord Rishabhadev's body to ashes. The pastimes of Lord Rishabhadev as a liberated soul were known by the king of Konka, Benka, and Kutaka. This king's name was Arhat. He later became captivated by the illusory energy, and in this condition he set forth the basic principles of Jainism. Haribo. Lord Rishabhadev set forth the principles of religion that can free one from material bondage, and he put an end to all kinds of atheistic activities. On this earth, the place known as Bharatabarsha, he was on this earth, the place known as Bharatabarsha was a very pious land because the Supreme Lord appeared there when he wanted to incarnate. Lord Rishabhadev neglected all the mystic powers for which the so-called yogis hanker. Because of the beauty of devotional service, devotees are not at all interested in so-called mystic power. The master of all yogic power, Lord Krishna, can exhibit all powers on behalf of his devotees. On behalf of his devotee. Devotional service is more valuable than yogic mystic powers. Devotees are sometimes misled. Devotees who are sometimes misled aspire for liberation and mystic powers. The Supreme Lord gives these devotees whatever they desire, but they cannot attain the most important function of devotional service. Devotional service to the Lord is guaranteed for those who do not desire liberation and mystic power. Quite a summary, eh? Text 1. King Parikshit asked Shukadev Goswami, "My dear Lord, for those who are completely pure in heart, knowledge is attained by the practice of bhakti yoga, and attachment for fruitive activity is completely burned to ashes. For such people, the powers of mystic yoga automatically arise. They do not cause distress. Why then did Rishabhadev neglect them?" Purport. A pure devotee is constantly engaged in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Whatever is necessary for the discharge of devotional service is automatically attained, though it may appear to be the result of mystic yogic power. Sometimes a yogi displays a little yogic power by manufacturing gold. A little quantity of gold captivates foolish people, and thus the yogi gets many followers who are willing to accept such a tiny person as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such a yogi may also advertise himself as Bhagavan. However, a devotee does not have to exhibit such magical wonders. Without practicing the mystic yoga process, he achieves even greater opulence all over the world. Under the circumstances, Lord Rishabhadev refused to manifest mystic yogic perfections, and Maharaja Parikshit asked why he did not accept them, since for a devotee they are not at all disturbing. A devotee is never distressed or satisfied by material opulence. His concern is how to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If, by the grace of the Supreme Lord, a devotee achieves extraordinary opulence, he utilizes the opportunity for the Lord's service. He is not disturbed by the opulence. Text 2. Srila Shukadeva Goswami replied, "My dear king, you have spoken correctly. However, after capturing animals, a cunning hunter does not put faith in them, for they might run away. Similarly, those who are advanced in spiritual life do not put faith in the mind." I'll read that one again. Similarly, for those who are advanced in spiritual life, do not put faith in the mind. Indeed, they always remain vigilant and watch the mind's action. I was talking to a couple of devotees the other day, and I was telling them, if your mind is like disturbed by something, what you do is you just yell at it inside your mind. Just yell at it. Stop it! What are you doing? Don't you remember the last time you went there? And you suffered and I suffered? Forget it. Stop it right now. And then if you do that, then you automatically become aware of the difference between you and your mind. And the mind, which actually wants to be controlled, the nature of the mind is it wants tranquility, it wants to be equipoised, it wants to be neutral. It's not satisfied when it's always, it wants to be controlled, like a child. Wants to be controlled, wants to be disciplined. If you stop disciplining it, it becomes a little animal. Isn't it? Okay. Similarly, those who are advanced in spiritual life do not put faith in the mind. Indeed, they always remain vigilant and watch the mind's action. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita 18.5, Lord Krishna says, "Yagyadana tapak karma natyadyam karyameva tat yagyo danam tapaschaiva pavanani manishinam." Acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance are not to be given up, but should be performed. Indeed, sacrifice, charity, and penance purify even the great souls. Even one who has renounced the world and has taken sannyas should not renounce chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Renunciation does not mean that one has to renounce Sankirtan Yajna. Similarly, one should not renounce charity or tapasya. The yoga system for control of the mind and senses must be strictly followed. Lord Rishabhadev showed how severe types of tapasya could be performed, and he set an example for all others. I'm going to go a little later, because we were late to start. 4 minutes. Text 3. All the learned scholars have given their opinion. The mind is by nature very restless, and one should not make friends with it. If we place full confidence in the mind, it may cheat us at any moment. Even Lord Shiva became agitated upon seeing the Mohini form of Lord Krishna, and Sobari Muni fell down from the mature stage of yogic perfection. Purport. The first business of one trying to advance in spiritual life is to control the mind and senses. Shall we read that again? No objections. I get my no objection certificate. Okay. The first business of one trying to advance in spiritual life is to control the mind and senses. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 15.7, "Mamai bangcho jiva loke jiva bhutak sanatana manak shastranindriyani prakriti-stani karshati." Although the living entities are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord and are therefore in a transcendental position, They are still suffering in this material world and struggling for existence due to the mind and the senses. To get out of this false struggle for existence and become happy in the material world, one has to control the mind and senses and be detached from material conditions. One should never neglect austerities and penances. One should always perform them. Lord Rishabhadev personally showed us how to do this. In the Srimad Bhagavatam 19:17, it is specifically stated, Matra swasra tuhitra navivaktasano bhavet balavan indriya gramo vidbangsam apikarshati. A grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyasi, and brahmachari should be very careful when associating with women. One is forbidden to sit down in a solitary place, even when with one's mother, sister, or daughter. In our Krishna consciousness movement, it has been very difficult to disassociate ourselves from women in our society, especially in Western countries. We are therefore sometimes criticized, but nonetheless, we are trying to give everyone a chance to chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and thus advance spiritually. If we stick to the principle of chanting Hare Krishna, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra offenselessly, then by the grace of Srila Haridas Thakur, we may be saved from the allurement of women. However, if we are not very strict in chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, we may at any time fall victims to women. And we'll end our reading that. It's exactly an hour, 7:40 to 7:40, 6:40 to 7:40. All right, now we have these new fancy-dancy. Did we get any complaints yet? Whoops. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. See how it works? Okay. We got any feedback about the mics? Are they working all right?
The mics are alright.
Mics are good. Okay. So far, so good. So here's the open mic session. Anybody want to reflect on what we heard so far? The profound instructions and example of Rishabhadev. Yes.
We read tonight, one who sees the living entity in the Supreme Lord as always distinct is very dear to the Lord. Also, one who preaches that the living entities are separate from the Supreme Lord is very dear to Lord Vishnu. But in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it says that a pure devotee, constantly engaged in the loving service of the Lord, is identical with the Lord, who is always seated in his heart. Could you elaborate, please?
Yes, the Lord is simultaneously one with and different from the Supreme Lord. So there is a class of philosophers or spiritualists who want to prove that there is no difference between the Lord and the living entity. They are called impersonalists because they don't acknowledge the difference. They think that they're equal, and therefore they have no tendency or no inclination to follow the Lord's instructions and worship the Lord, because they think that all is one. On the other hand, we should see the qualitative similarity between the Lord and the individual soul, because both are sentient, individual sentient beings, conscious beings. So unless we see the difference, then we will not be able to see that we are actually infinitesimal and the Lord is infinite. Therefore we will not have a tendency to want to submit and to hear submissively. There's a nice purport in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, first chapter, text 55, where Prabhupada points out that the essence of surrender is submissiveness. And to the proportion that we actually become submissive, to that degree we will be able to see the Lord face to face, if we become completely submissive. So how can you become submissive if you think that the Lord and you are the same? There's no difference. So you have to see the difference. But at the same time, you have to see the oneness, qualitative oneness. Something. Okay, who's next? You're allowed to you don't just always have to ask questions. Go ahead.
I was just wondering about what was the Lord thinking when he was doing the activities as we read?
Well, we have a
seems-
hint. We have a hint when it says that he was crying and shivering, and crying and feeling ecstasy. He was feeling pure love of God. Even though he was God, he's feeling pure love of God. So therefore he wasn't disturbed by the externals, because internally he was not identifying at all with them. The more we identify with the external features of our body and minds, and then we also heard about that, how the endeavoring transcendentalist will always be very careful about the mind, because if you're not, it's liable to run away at any second and do whatever it wants and drag you along with it. And all of a sudden you find yourself doing something. Wait a second, I didn't want to do that. I remember, oh no, now what's going to happen next? And there you go. You're off to the races, into material anxiety, material frustration, and suffering. So he taught us in a particular way, because in that time, in that particular place, that's what was needed. And then we heard about, the king Arhat, who imitated, and then started the Jain religion, where they're wearing something around the priests, they wear something around so they won't do anything, it's extremism. Even a good thing taken to the extreme can be a bad thing. A bad thing taken to the extreme can be a good thing. It's a matter of knowing how to do it. And Hare Krishna. And we get that knowledge by assimilating the Srimad Bhagavatam. We make a deal. Assimilate the Bhagavatam and you have the equivalent of 5 PhDs. So you want to prove me wrong, assimilate the Bhagavatam. It's described there in somewhere that we read that Rishabdev tricked us all. He tricked all the fallen souls, because, if they would have just treated him nicely, they would have gotten everything. But they were all only thinking, look at the externals, and therefore they were criticizing and throwing things and all these things, and therefore they couldn't be blissful. They couldn't get the bliss of pure love of God, where they could see everything equally and not be disturbed. So he gave us the perfect example of how to do that. So that he doesn't mean that we should all, run out the door, go naked, lay on the ground, and wait for something to, walk into our mouth so we can eat. In order to do that, you have to pass fragrant stool. Anybody can do that, then you're qualified. Okay. Who else? What else?
I'll say something.
Yes.
And
Dr. Janaki, wait. You got to wait for the mic. Both mics are working nicely now? Okay, good.
my reflection is similar to what you were saying. I see it that the Lord is just saying to mortal man that you can do anything, or you could display anything you want. And you basically shouldn't be bothered by what people think. That's how I see it. And the chapter was reflected on mainly self-discipline, which, then teaches you to be centered and not to be, not to be influenced by other people. That's how my reflection.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's the beginning of spiritual life. It's the beginning of spiritual life. But we can't artificially, one thing is that we can't artificially imitate that, because the only way you can get there is by pure love of God, and that was his example. That you can't actually, that's an ideal, and to understand the ideal is good, but one can't actually achieve it, without developing or awakening one's full love of God. So that kind of detachment isn't possible just by some mechanical process or by the strength of our own mind or strength of our own sensual power. It can only be given to us by Krishna, and it only gives it to us. It only gives it to those who are actually in love with him. Okay, I got to stop now because I'm going to go record tomorrow morning. We're trying to work out some alternative arrangements so that we can not stop. I've had to stop too much lately. Okay. Rishabhadev ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol. Thank you all. Same time, same place, same station tomorrow. Hare Krishna.